Hi, welcome to this new section. Here we are going to practice with the passive voice. You may be familiar with this term because you may have heard it at school and you may have completed some activities that help you reinforce this topic. Let me just then quickly review what the passive voice is, and let me just tell you that we have the passive voice because there exists also the active voice. What is the difference between them? That depends on whether we mention the doer of the action first in a sentence or not. The first noun that we use to conjugate the verb is usually the subject of the sentence. If the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action, we're talking about the active voice. If the subject of the sentence is not the doer of the action but the recipient of the action, then we are talking about the passive voice because the subject of the sentence is passive, is not acting, is not doing anything transcendental, let's say very important in the sentence. Let me illustrate this with some examples. We have here, the class understood the teacher's instructions perfectly. What is the subject? The class. Is the class the one that is performing the action of understanding? Yes. If the class is the subject and is the doer of the action, then that is a sentence written in the active voice. The next one. The teacher's instructions were perfectly understood by the class. The teacher's instructions is the subject of the sentence. Are the teacher's instructions the doers of the action of understanding? No. They receive the action of understanding. Those are the ones that are understood. So in that case, we are in the presence of a sentence in the passive voice. Is that clear? Let me give you one additional example. Oh, why do I have, that by the class in parentheses? In the passive voice, sometimes it is not absolutely necessary to specify who's the doer of the action because the focus is on who receives the action. In this case, the teacher's instructions. So if we just say the teacher's instructions were perfectly understood, and if we don't say anything else, it's because that is not absolutely important. All right? So let me show you another example. That construction company builds houses with eco-friendly materials. Eco-friendly materials are environmentally friendly materials. So, what is the action there? Builds. Who builds? The construction company. If the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action, then that is active voice. But if we say houses are built, houses is the subject of the sentence, but it's not doing the action of building, but receiving the action of building, then that is passive voice. Houses are built with eco-friendly materials by that construction company. So, how do we form the passive voice? This is the key. We take the verb tense of the main verb in the active voice and we apply it to the verb be, to the auxiliary verb be in the passive voice. That's why builds is in the present simple and are is in the present form. All right? And the main verb of the sentence is the one that we include as a past participle form in the passive voice. I know it may be a little complex just to word it like that, but if you read element by element, word for word, it will make sense. It will make perfect sense in the passive voice. But those are the key elements that you need to take into account to form sentences in the passive voice. Let me give you in this activity just one simple exercise in which we are going to make sure that we understand whether a sentence is written in the active voice or in the passive voice. So let's read the instructions together. It says, determine whether the following sentences have been written in the active voice or in the passive voice. What do we need to take into account? What is mentioned first? And if what is mentioned first, which is the subject of the sentence, is doing the action or did the action or not. That's all we need to take into account. So please look at these sentences, think about them, analyze them, and then determine whether they are written in the active or the passive voice. So I'm going to pause. You're going to pause my video and complete the assignment and just tell me active, passive, and that is all that we need for this activity. So pause your video now, complete the activity, and I'll see you in a moment. Right? I hope that you completed the assignment and that we can compare your answers. So let's look at the first sentence, please. It says, most workers in my country are paid twice a month. Okay, what is the action? Pay. Who pays? The workers? No, the workers are paid. They receive the action of paying, so this is a sentence in the passive voice. All right. Next, our car is washed and waxed at least every other week. What are the actions? Wash and wax. Who waxes? The cars? Our car waxes or washes itself? No. So somebody else does it. So the car is the recipient of the action. So that sentence is written in the passive voice. We're going to pronounce them all in a moment. Next, it was found that we tend to criticize what we don't like about ourselves. This is very profound. All right, but what is the main verb there? It was found. The subject is it, and the main verb is was. The main verb phrase is was found. Who finds? So it is not it that finds. That is what was found. So it received the action. That is called actually an impersonal pronoun that is used in these constructions when we don't have a specific noun to point at. We use it as an expletive, we call it. But it is the case of a sentence written in the passive voice. But why? Because the finding was not done by it. It found? No, that is what was found. That is the fact that was discovered. So the criticizing what we don't like about ourselves, that fact was what was found. So it is not that the criticizing found something, but that was found. All right? So that is a sentence written in the passive voice. Next, our government is paying a company to research teenagers' vocational trends. Vocational trends refers to the tendency that teenagers have in terms of job, occupations, what they're going to be doing, etc. So what is the action? Is paying. Who's paying? The subject? Our government is paying. Yes. So in that case, that is a sentence in the active voice. And finally, it says, that documentary is criticizing consumerism in a very direct manner. Both pronunciations are okay. So the action is criticizing. Is the subject doing the criticizing? Yes, the documentary is criticizing that consumerism. Consumerism is buying stuff just for the sake of buying, not necessarily things that we really, really need. So the documentary is criticizing. Yes, the subject is doing the action. Yes, so in that case, we're in the presence of a sentence in the active voice. That's all we need to know. Just make sure that you understand all these sentences and the reason that we have for saying they are in the active or in the passive voice. And if that is clear, you have completed this assignment. All right, now I am going to pause my video so that you can listen to the pronunciation of these sentences for your reference. Remember that you can always practice your pronunciation when you hear the pronunciation of the native speakers. So I'm going to pause my video and you're going to listen to the pronunciation by a boy. All right? So listen to the pronunciation, please.
Most workers in my country are paid twice a month. Our car is washed and waxed at least every other week. It was found that we tend to criticize what we don't like about ourselves. Our government is paying a company to research teenagers' vocational trends. That documentary is criticizing consumerism in a very direct manner.
Great. Remember that you can always practice your pronunciation as you listen to them. So now we are going to continue to practice with the passive voice, and for our next activity, we are going to talk about historical sites. What historical sites do you know in Latin America? So we're going to talk about them in a moment. So I will see you in the next video.